we've hit the middle of May, which means it's silly season in college football. Everybody's getting their predictions out. Everybody's saying this, that, and the other, and we've got some outliers, I will call it, in the grand scheme of things. I wanted to go through just a sample of three different people. One who's sort of independent, one who is at Fox, and one who is at ESPN. And we're going to just go through and see what they all had to say lately. I would say I would take the ESPN one the most seriously because Mark Schlabach has been doing this a long time and has a lot more background and knowledge and all of these things. It doesn't mean I agree with everything that Mark has to say either, but frankly, right now, we're a little bit out there with predictions. I think that shows, first of all, no one really has an opinion. Very few people share the opinion that there is one dominant team. And I think that is something that, in the past 10 years, the default was, it's Alabama. We're going to put Alabama at number one. Can't really do that anymore. And so that there's not a premier team makes for some very curious times out there these days. I'll start with someone that some of y'all watched, Josh Pate, who started doing this, I don't know, I don't mean this as an insult, but sort of out of his basement and has taken it to where he's at now. He's got Clemson number one with Texas 2, Penn State 3, Alabama 4, LSU 5, Notre Dame 6, Oregon 7, then Ohio State, Florida at number 9, Oklahoma at 10, and you got to get all the way to number 11 to find Georgia. These are, quote, post-spring top 20 if I had to rank them right now. Josh, bro, no, dude. There's a lot wrong with that, but we'll get back to that in a little bit. Joel Klatt, Fox honk for the Big Ten and former Colorado Buff. He's got Penn State at number 1, then Texas, Ohio State at 3, Oregon 4, Clemson at 5, Notre Dame at 6, LSU at 7, Georgia at 8, Alabama at 9, and then Illinois, followed by South Carolina. Over at ESPN, Penn State is the one coming into the season with Clemson at 2, Texas at 3, Georgia at 4, Ohio State at 5, LSU at 6, Notre Dame 7, Oregon 8, Alabama 9, and BYU at 10. BYU at 10, which is a curious spot. I would say, first of all, with all of these, Penn State and Clemson are overranked, period. There's no explanation for putting Clemson at number 1. And, I mean, that's just, come on. So I don't know what Josh is talking about at all. That makes no sense. Anyone who's watched Clemson play, the quarterback has challenges, which I'm going to get to in a second here because it ain't exclusive to him. But, when your quarterback is that up and down and you have that much data about him, that is the real challenge to me. What is Clemson got outside of the quarterback? A really good defensive line. They're good on defense. Shocker. They're good at that. But nothing has made me think that a team that won its conference on a field goal kick with no time left and then just kind of got, sort of routined out by Texas makes them the number 1 team in the country. No, come on. Let's no. Then you got Penn State over at ESPN as the number 1. My issue with Penn State more than anything is James Franklin is just not that great. And it's that simple. I know that they've got Jim Knowles over there now. That's a very big pickup for sure. Is that going to work immediately? I don't know. Drew Aller is unspectacular, I would say, at a minimum. But, I mean, I'd rather have Cade Klubnik than him. But Cade Klubnik makes a lot of mistakes. That's what I would have a real challenge with. I think Texas or Ohio State is going to come into this thing as number 1 team in the country. When it all is said and done and all this sort of the machinations of things are worked through and all of that, I think that's what we're going to see. These are not the last sort of silly season things that we're going to see this season. There's still plenty of that's going to be out there, but I don't see Georgia being a top 10 team. They'll probably a top 5 team and take it from there, but there is no team that it's obvious, these guys should win the national championship. I think you can make a case that Texas has the best team, But even with that, I'm not. They have problems too. I mean, everybody has problems in this thing. Our friends at BetMGM has Ohio State. They have Ohio State at plus 500, along with Texas at plus 500. They are the co-leaders to win, co-favorites to win the national championship. Then Georgia at 650, Oregon 750, Penn State at 800, Notre Dame at plus 1400, Alabama at plus 1500, Clemson at plus 1600, and LSU at plus 2000. These both can't be true at the same time. Like Clemson and Penn State can't be number 1 and number 2 and have those odds that are that long. Like Clemson has an easy schedule. Okay. Now the problem for, who could be a surprise, and I said this the other day, LSU, but I have no real faith in LSU. Brian, I just don't. The way they got their ass beat by Alabama last year at home, Nussmeier is a good quarterback. He can throw it, but just not consistent the way. I mean, the guy had 4,000 yards passing this past year. I mean, that's exceptional. But LSU is not consistent. They're just not consistent. I have my doubts about Georgia as well. Everyone should. I mean, we're at the point here where, this Georgia team offensively has got to pick it up. You have concerns about Nussmeier. He threw for 4,000 yards last year. Kate Klubnik makes plays. He makes a lot of mistakes too. We still don't know as much as we need to know about Gunnar Stockton in order to, sort of intelligently place bets, I guess is the one way to put it. With Drew Aller, we know. With Kate Klubnik, we know what they are. I think that Arch Manning, Gunnar, there are guys that have played for their school in conference games or whatever. And, Gunnar played in more important games than Arch did last year. I mean, Arch played against Georgia, and that was bad. But he played against Mississippi State and played some other games. Gunnar really just played against Texas, Tennessee Tech, and Notre Dame. And, he was fine against Notre Dame. There were some throws that were really good, but every good starting quarterback has throws. So it's not that. We really need to know more about Arch. We need to know more about Gunnar. At Ohio State, is it Julian Sayin? Is at Alabama? So there's all sorts of, questions for a lot of people everywhere. I mean, it's a very challenging moment right now in college football. But I'll say this: I would take the overall talent at Georgia, Ohio State, and Texas over almost everybody. Certainly over Clemson, over LSU and Alabama have got a lot of really good players. But Ohio State's the benefit of being at Ohio State is that the rest of that league is just not in their stratosphere in terms of talent. That's why when they lose to Michigan, particularly these last couple of years, Michigan's been better, but they don't have the talent that Ohio State has. That's why it's particularly bad when they lose. I mean, Notre Dame has got a great situation in terms of they don't play a lot of people either. The thing about Clemson and Notre Dame, sort of ACC cousins, if you want to call it that. I know Notre Dame's not in the ACC, but they're sort of ACC light. They both open up with challenging games. I do not think LSU will beat Clemson. I don't. I do not think that Miami will beat Notre Dame. But those games will show us a lot about where things are. And then you've got teams like, Alabama, Oregon, South Carolina is this year's Tennessee. There's a lot of stuff. When I step back and I look, and by the way, how can you have Florida in your top 10? That literally makes no sense to me. So here's what I'm saying here. We've got to be intellectually honest about situations. That Florida had a good close to the season doesn't mean that they had a good season. They were 4-4 in the SEC. That's the first time they've not had a losing season in a long time. But that doesn't mean that they're better than, say, South Carolina or Georgia. I mean, come on, man. Come on. There's we got to be better with our audiences and with some of this stuff that we talk about sometimes. It's just not basic. Oklahoma's better than Georgia, bro. Come on now. And it's not just that. It's not just Oklahoma. It's not just Georgia based. You're telling me you'd rank Ohio State behind LSU? You'd rank Alabama behind Ohio State? I would not. If I don't have Ohio State in my top 5, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. They have problems. So does Texas. The problem we have right now in college football is this is a mishmash right now. There is, like, if you were to come to me and say, oh, I got, Ole Miss as a top 12 team, I'd be like, man, I don't know about that, but there's not a lot of great teams out there. And Mississippi's had a solid, little kick here lately. They can't ever win a game that they need to win when they need to win it. Hello, Swamp, this past November. But, like, the blue bloods of today's college football are still the blue bloods. Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, Alabama to some degree. I would say Oregon. Those teams that have shown that they can do it in today's portal world. To me, Georgia's situation is that I don't know that they got better through the portal, but I mean, like, Mark moved them up to number 5, from number 5 to number 4. He dropped at ESPN, Mark said, he dropped Ohio State from 5 to 1. I don't know why, sort of Clemson was moved up from 7 to 2. It's very curious to me. I'm not sure the explanation for that. But, just getting a defensive coordinator, I mean, like, Penn State lost a defensive coordinator. So did they get a better defensive coordinator? It looks like it. Is that all going to work in one season? It hasn't at Georgia in the years gone by. So, I don't know. Things are going to have their run game is not great. Again, the quarterback has got to make better decisions, generally speaking, with games on the line. South Carolina game. So it's I can't see some of these things. I know Clemson relatively well, but I just don't, like, if Georgia were number 1, I'd be like, I don't get that. Because I wouldn't understand that. But I think the default putting Texas at 1 is probably what you're going to see, probably. And probably Ohio State, and Penn State, and Georgia in the top 4 or 5. And I think Notre Dame will probably be in that group, and Alabama will be near there. I'm not suggesting that Alabama should necessarily be in there, but we'll see. I mean, Alabama didn't have a good season either. But they belong in the top 10. I can't say Florida does. You tell me if you think the Florida Gators belong in the top 10, or if that was just something to get people talking.